Yeah, well, you know what? It has been surprising us. I think, in a nutshell, we have been seeing homes that are selling quickly. So, homes that are selling with multiple offers. Most of the homes that we've been selling have been selling in multiple offers. And so, sellers have been very happy. I would say that the pricing is still pretty reasonable, but we may even be seeing a shift back into 2022 style where we are really underpricing to get that really big bidding war and then selling for considerably over asking price. So we'll see what the spring brings us, but that is where we are heading. And I think that there's lots of buyer interest right now. People are getting some confidence with the Bank of Canada holding the rate, which is great for a lot of people. And they, you know what, they want to move forward with their plans. I'd say at the start, we want to make sure that everything that we're putting in is going to be getting, 3 times our investment. So that's the goal. And then we really want to look at what will catch everyone's attention from a marketing perspective. So many people start online before coming into a house. So we want to have those sort of large surface upgrades. So usually we lead with, or I like to say, this is my advice, the floors, countertops, walls. Those are really big ones to think about, because if you picture looking at any really room in the house, that's the first thing that's going to jump off the page. So, and that's, with floors, they can lose their lifespan pretty quickly, 10, 15 years, they can really sort of remind you that, hey, this is not a brand new house. Everyone wants to live in a newer home. I don't meet many people that say, hey, find me a sort of a 20-year-old house that's seen better years. So this is really about bringing it up to a certain standard that makes people go, oh, this is great when they walk in. Like, that's the narrative, rather than, there's now a list of what I have to do. There's always going to be a few things, because I always say too, we don't want to rebuild a house for a buyer we've never met, and we really won't meet. We need to put upgrades and renovations that are going to appeal to everybody and make sense for our budget. And when I sit down with clients, the first thing I say is, what's your budget? Because not everyone can afford to, put new floors in, repaint the house top to bottom, or put quartz counters in. So we need to make sure we're hitting a list that's manageable for them, and it's going to meet expectations for the buyer of the kind of home they have. And then, you add in the staging and the amazing photographs and all of that. And that's how we get a fantastic looking home to take to market. Yeah.
I think it's important to not customize the home too much, just as potential buyers ourselves, right? Looking and seeing really custom homes
Yep.
to those people that live there, it's their layout.
We want to have mass appeal, appeal to as many people as we can coming through the door. And again, that really does start back with those photos, because you can have a fabulous neighborhood, a really, great sort of vibe when you come up to the house. But we have to be honest, we need to pull them in from the photos of the interior. So if we can appeal to a biggest group of possible, that's how we're going to get them. Yeah. We, again, want to appeal to that mass market. We were, in the previous conversation we had touched on, really gathering a big group of people who are going to fall in love with your house. And that's not having a ultra, specific style. Staging is kind of similar. I mean, definitely there's trends that we see in staging, but we want to really have that fresh, clean look, and that everyone can picture themselves there. Definitely, I think a tip in staging is to make the most of our space. Sometimes, it's not about taking everything out and having a very empty room. Most people are, approaching, choosing a house like, hey, how many people can I fit in this family room? Can my kids fit in? Can we all gather around a table? So to really highlight that this is what this room is supposed to do, it actually will work. Like, it's not, it's almost like fashion. Like, there's runway fashion, and then there's what filters down to us normal people and how we wear it and, take it out every day. It's kind of like that for home design and staging. We still need to have that feel that people can see themselves there, and it really works. And that is when, I hear buyers speak like, oh, this is cozy, this is so lovely. Like, it's those emotional words that people will start honestly feeling, and they can picture themselves there. I mean, that's why we talk about, of course, taking down personal photos and depersonalizing the space. That's true, but I always feel like there's that aspect of we want to personalize it as well. You want to make it feel like, every family, whether they have 3 kids, 1 child, whatever works, that'll be their new home. Yeah.
I love what you said about the fashion. It's so true. You wouldn't want to stage with really high-end pieces, maybe unless it's a home on Rosedale or Forest Hill, right? But definitely just looking at the space and putting in what you think would work.
Yeah. And we don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Like they're, it's sort of like too bougie for them. They wouldn't fit into this house. Like we want it to feel like, upscale, obviously showing it to its best potential, but like homey and real. And I think that's what ultimately people will respond to the most. Yeah.
On that same train of thought, what are some trends that you're seeing now in home staging and interior design?
I think it's the neutrals, these very light beiges, because we had the gray phase. Now we're starting to come to more of the neutrals, like sisal rugs, jute rugs, a lot of the gathered blankets at the beds, and just sort of that luxury, like sort of fall into me kind of bed and, have a nap and, or read a book kind of thing. Same with the couches. We just sort of have that that vibe where you wanted to sit and stay, rather than a very formal, like where you sort of have to feel like you sit up and, like your, grandma's living room. Like it's sort of there more of a cottage feel, but again, really approachable. So that's definitely the style. A lot of minimal greenery we're seeing. So that's really pretty. It looks really good in a photo, but honestly, it looks so good in life. Like there's so many houses, when the staging is done, I'm thinking, oh man, I got to do this in my house.
Because yes,
right? It's so true. I mean, because we know it, but we don't live like it. And, we think, oh, I've got to go and get some of that. But again, that's all part of, I think, the, that recipe for great staging is like you're weaving a dream, but it still seems attainable. People want to have that.
You mentioned grandma's living room. So what do you do when you go into a home? And I'm sure you deal with a lot of grandmothers, like selling for them.
Yes, love them.
When you walk into their homes and it's, a little bit dated, right?
Sure,
and the furniture is like, a little bit older. How do you go about staging those types of homes that are a little bit dated? And how do you convince them to change it up a bit?
I find that it has to be done to my client's comfort level, because some people just are only comfortable with so much. So my first meetings with them is sort of finding out what will make them happy, what will make them comfortable. At the same time, wanting to bring in, what I know will work, because that's what I'm getting paid to do. Is I'm getting paid to bring them top dollar. So I know that there's going to be, there's just tried and true things that will, I think, need to be done. But it's definitely, maybe moving out some of the furniture, moving in some younger pieces. We don't want to look, like we're staging for 25-year-old, because they're not buying our house. But so we can identify who our target market is, and then we want to bring in some pieces that make sense to them, but also looks authentic to the house. Because guess what? The kitchen may be of a certain era as well. So we don't want everything fighting each other. Like it really needs to work together. But again, being able to have some key photo shots where it's going to grab people's attention online and want them to motivate them to book in. But I think that's really the best way. Is it's finding out what will make them comfortable, and usually after a conversation, they've either heard about staging, they're a little nervous about it, but then they understand really what it's all about. We're not just going to empty their whole house. If that's needed, sure, but most people don't want that, and it's not necessary. It's just bringing in key elements that will really make that new buyer happy, but that they can still live with. Because, especially if a house isn't selling in 24 hours, this has to be furniture and pieces that they can, live with in their daily life until it's sold. Like I don't, bring furniture in and then rip it out after 2 or 3 weeks. It stays, if that's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, it stays until the house is sold. So it all has to make sense and be, manageable. And it's the same with a lot of my, clients have young children or pets. Like, how does that work? Like, we're not putting breakable pieces on the ground, and because they have to live with it. When we were in COVID and, a lot of my clients were leaving to the cottage, or they were just getting an Airbnb, and they were leaving me basically, tossing me the keys. Here's the house. And I had an empty house, to work with, or just they weren't coming back. We could do what we wanted. And it didn't really matter that, because no one was living with the furniture. So we could do a lot of, with that. Now it really becomes what's reasonable and what's going to make the most sense for selling the house, but that my clients can live with happily as well. Yeah. And they're not worried that their 4-year-old, I know we started talking about grandma's house, but on the other side of the coin is a lot of, my clients have little ones, and they're not having a heart attack every time, they think something's going to be broken, because that's just a stress ball and it's not fun.
And it's so important to point out too, you don't actually have to move. You can live in a
Oh
stage.
yeah, sure. It's all real furniture.
Yeah.
It's not, cardboard. It's all
Sit on the bed, you won't fall.
yes, no, I promise there'll be no collapsing of tables and chairs and beds. But yeah, and it's all real bedding that you can put on again. We always say take a photo in the beginning after the stager's done it, and it's perfect. And then so you can sort of recreate it in the morning of the pillows and sort of roll the blankets back on. So again, it's all livable. You don't have to live in a sleeping bag in the corner in the basement. Like that's I think that's a lot of people's fears. And so once the fears I think are addressed, then people really lean into the staging. They have fun with it. And so many times, my older clients as well, especially actually, my grandmas, I'll hear, oh, I've always wanted to do this. Now I don't want to sell. And I think, oh man, this is sort of, not good for my business, but I think, right, it's a joke, and we always laugh about it. And if they don't want to, leave, they're wowed by it, and they've seen the house for 20, 30 years. Can you imagine what new eyes on it, people who've never seen it and walking in, they're going to be wowed. So I think that's the best reaction is when my clients don't want to sell the house anymore after it's staged.
Once they see it staged, and there's
Yeah.
probably even tears involved, just to see what the
Oh, yeah.
full capability of their home could look like. And that's so important
Yes.
too, dealing with emotions of sellers, because they've been there
Yes.
for 30, 40 years, even 50 years, I've heard, and they stay there in that home for so long. How do you deal with the emotions of sellers? You're there for them.
Yeah, you have to be, and it's our home. And I mean, it's the memories. It's where, we had our babies there, or they've graduated, they've, all weddings and all of those things. It comes with it. And it's a lot. I mean, and even in the best situation where we've got, top dollar and exactly the money that they were hoping for and more, and the closing date's perfect, it's almost bittersweet. I mean, I think that's the best word. It's bittersweet. Like I remember when Jason and I sold our last house, my husband, and we had 3 children, and our youngest, Ella, was not born in the house, but she was a baby when we took her back. And when I was leaving, actually, we've been going back further. Like when we sold the house, we got an offer right away, and it was more than we wanted, and it was great. And we sort of looked at each other, and it was like, yeah, high five, and then we both sort of teared up, and because it was like, oh, this is our house where our little ones were little, and it was a thing. Like, and so fast forward, 60 days when we were closing, and I remember, sort of mopping on my way out. The kids had gone, the dog had gone, and I'm mopping the floors, and tears start coming, and and it was just like, it's exactly what I wanted. I was very excited about my new house, but yeah, man, it was hard to leave that one, and we still drive by it, and we have like for years, like we just point out, we watch the tree grow and all those things, how it looked when we had it. And then luckily there's, lovely people that we know, funny enough, that are living in it now. And it's just great to see, but it's, even for me, it's what I do for a living. And I still I hang on to that. So I get it. And I think that's really the biggest thing. We have to be sensitive to, what we're selling. We're not selling like a sweater or a car, or it's different. I mean, I know people are attached to their cars, but I think it's really different, especially when so many life events are involved.
Yeah. It's not just an emotional thing, and it's been there like your entire life or most of your life. So it's definitely an emotional thing, and it's also your most biggest asset, right?
100%. It's everyone's biggest investment. Yeah. So, and I think that's, getting into the staging or marketing and taking great photos and drones and videos. Like, I think that's doing our homes justice. It's doing our biggest investment justice, that we need to make it look that fabulous so that we will, be able to extract our biggest amount of equity out of it. Or, when we're looking at just from the home of, like my house, of just the idea of the kids and my life, that those moments I had, that it was, kind of honoring that memory of like, let's put it forward into its best light, because then it's going to be that for somebody else. And it is. If there's kids there now, and, that's, I think, the best way to go about it. So, getting back to my clients who are sort of 75 plus and they've been there for years, they're happy too, because they're thinking, hey, this is going to a new family, this is going to a new chapter, but that they, left it in its best light. So yeah, I always find everyone who starts a little scared always ends up loving it, and they're really happy with it.
Do you think so, especially for the sellers that are a bit older and they've been there for a longer time, when you're looking at offers and let's say someone gives you a letter for the sellers to read, do those make a big impact?
Such a good question. Yes, there's some good ones too, with the the babies with rosy cheeks and the golden retriever sitting right there. And even I'm reading, I'm like, oh, okay, just take it. But it does make an impact. I mean, from the selling perspective, we do need to lead. In my opinion, we do need to lead with the strength of the offer and price, the strength of the buyer and financing. That's really important because financing has changed so drastically over the past few years that, we need these buyers to make sure they can get to the finish line and that their financing is just rock solid. So that, I think, has to lead. However, once we have a few buyers who, we check those boxes, let's say it's a multiple offer, because that's usually when we get the letters in a bidding war. If we have, 3 or 4 that have, great financing, the prices is great, the letters, of course, they definitely make an impact. And, they give, I think, more perspective to the sellers. They give a face to the names, life, what those new lives are going to look like, what their house is going to hold for them, rather than just, closing date, money, chattels included, and which is all important. But I think there's that nice human, perspective to it. So yes. Yeah, that was a long answer to yes. Those letters matter.
Yes, good to know.
But I have to say, we have to lead with a strong offer, not just the pretty pictures. But if we can make it all work, amazing.
Yeah, it's nice when it all does come together.
Yes, it does. Sure. It makes me very happy when that happens. Yeah. Yeah, I see them the next morning. They'll be bringing in the deposit check, and because they have to bring that into the office next to my personal office is kind of close to the front desk there. It's right in the front, and I see them coming in, and they're so cute. They're all excited, and I always try to pop out and meet them because I've never met them either, right? Because I'm dealing with their agent, and it's lovely, when it all works, and it's just great people, and they're just so excited for the house, and again, it's that bittersweet, right? The sellers are bittersweet over it, but they're thrilled that the buyers are just so excited because it reminds them really of how they were when they purchased, right? And it's sort of a great memory. The answer I would have given you 3 weeks ago is it's different than what I'm going to give you right now. We are seeing the multiple offers happening time and time again. We're seeing agents now holding for a certain day, meaning, they start showing on Wednesday or Thursday, and then they won't be looking at offers until next week. So that's all prepping for a bidding war situation. So what I'm seeing on my side is that we're getting multiple offers. Conditions are still there in many of the offers, so financing and home inspection, but there's a few firm offers lurking in there. And, ultimately those are usually the winner, unless there's a real reason specifically why a seller wouldn't go with that. The price is radically lower or what have you. Most sellers would really lean into that firm offer because it's a done deal. It's done right there. The deposit is given, the sold sign's on, and it's, they can't change their minds as they really can with a financing condition or in a home inspection condition. So that's what I'm seeing. So what the advice we're giving to our, buyers right now is kind of very circa 2021, 2022, get your financing together, get prepared, have your deposit, liquid in cash, in an account, so that you can give that deposit over, because it does need to be given within 24 hours. And really, I think, things can always be done with a home inspection. Maybe we could do something a little earlier. Maybe the seller has one themselves, but maybe we could, book one ahead of time that you'd have to pay for, but then you have that peace of mind and still can go in with a really strong offer, like a firm offer. But the financing is usually the most challenging for clients because the narrative has been very different for the past 9 months, hasn't it? It's been very, buyer's market. We're back to, conditions and, you can wait for us and we'll be very choosy. And that seems to quickly be going by the wayside. And we're coming back into what we were experiencing the last few years, which is frustrating for buyers. However, if they're well set up, it was like you guys, when you went and bought a few weeks back, like you were, very organized, you were ready with your financing, so you could really take advantage of that situation and get the house that you wanted. So that is what we're asking people to do. So it just takes a little bit of prep work, whether that's with their lender or, we can put them in touch with, brokers and what have you, that can really give them a solid, this is what, you can afford, this is what you can do. And yes, you can go with a firm offer, no financing, or in some cases, hey, no, you really can't because it's dangerous and we want to protect you. Like there's no, you don't want to get in over your head. That's really the key thing as well. There's some homes that have been for sale longer that would be looking at a conditional offer, but when I'm saying we see the tide changing and the firm offers really coming into fashion again, it tends to be with very new inventory. So for example, if a house is listed this morning, they're going to be looking at offers on Monday. We have to assume that that's really what they're gunning for, is that, bidding war, that perfect offer with no conditions. If the house has been on the market for 3 weeks, hey, let's put in an offer with the conditions that we want. So it really just becomes knowing what you can be capable of doing, and then we can identify the best properties to show you. So there's always a way. We just really need to be organized.
Yeah, being prepared is key. And I know that you don't, just to finish this off, I know you don't have a crystal ball.
I wish I did.
I know.
Lottery. You heard the Lotto Max this week? I think it's $50 million. Oh my gosh.
That'd be nice. But yeah, I know you don't have a crystal ball. But just looking at all the data that's going on these past few weeks, do you have a semi-prediction of where we're heading? Are we heading back to those 2021, 2022 levels? Or what do you foresee? And I won't hold you to it.
No, thank you. The higher interest rate is going to have its impact with pricing, because people are only going to be able to go so high because their mortgage payments are so affected. So I think that's going to have a natural limiter. I think what the unknown right now is how many people are looking at buying, and that's where I'm sitting. There's quite a few. So if I had to make an educated guess, I think we're going to be going perhaps back to semi 2022 levels of interest. So that we're really into the last house I had last week, I had 42 showings in 4 days. That's impactful. Like, that really is, I think, saying to the, to me, is what the market is doing. There's a lot of people hunting. There's a lot of people looking. So that in itself is going to, of course, drive the price up, because there's going to be more offers. So we're going to get that natural build. But what we have this year is we didn't have in earlier years when it was, the craziness, is the higher interest rate. So that, it just, people's affordability it remains impacted. It remains different than it was before. So when we had those skyrocketing, $400,000, $500,000 over, crazy. I think that's going to be something that we won't be seeing.
Yeah, that interest rate is the kicker.
It is the kicker. No matter how much you like a house, that's like the big brother. It's the interest rate. It is the. It still comes to haunt you a little. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all of this information you gave us today, Lisa. This has been great.
Great talking with you.